David Wong is a 1985 graduate of the Boston College MBA program. I'm delighted to introduce you to him today. Mr. Wong is Vice President of Marketing for Mobile ESPN, which is a unit of ESPN. As many of you know, ESPN is the crown jewel of the Walt Disney Company. ESPN in total last year earned more money than movies, theme parks, the ABC network, which is the former parent of ESPN. And Mr. Wong's pedigree is tremendous. He comes formerly holding senior marketing positions at a number of firms, including AT&T, Colgate-Palmolive, Pepsi International, Joseph E. Seagram's. In his current role, he will be helping to roll out and heading up the marketing efforts for the rollout of Mobile ESPN, which is a new wireless service scheduled to roll out officially during the first quarter of 2006. But he'll show us some of the very cool technologies on that platform today. In addition to being a Boston College MBA alum, David also holds an undergraduate degree from NYU. He is a recipient of the Top 50 Asian Americans in Business Award, and he serves on the Somerset County Diversity Board in New Jersey. Mobile ESPN was mentioned in the Business Week cover story of about a week ago, and in fact also in a glowing article in Wired from earlier this year. And if that's not enough to earn David a hearty round of applause from this audience, rumor also has it that he's here interviewing folks for possible internships. So please join me in offering a very hearty welcome home to David Wong.
Solid 5 years of recent because we were just clocking Notre Dame every single year, and we took them off the #1 platform in one given season, and I'll tell you that was just a huge win for BC. And so yeah, I'm really happy to be here and just to spend some time with some of the students I had this privilege of meeting with this morning. I've got to say, 20 years later, I'm just incredibly impressed with the student body as well as with the faculty. When I was going to school here back in '83, '85, that was Doug Flutie's junior and senior year, and you just had to imagine kind of the wave of emotion that was going on the campus during that time. The book center was selling out like crazy, all the sweatshirts, T-shirts about Boston College. I mean, the pride was back with BC during that time frame. Boston College got into the Liberty Bowl, then won the Cotton Bowl. Then the Heisman Trophy came into play. It was being featured at the Book Center. Beat Penn State during that time frame, and the Hail Mary pass over at Miami. And then on top of that, you had the hockey team that was in the Final Four, and then the basketball team that finally made it to the Final 16. So it was just a tremendous period of time for Boston College. And you could see student fan passion, which was, just rampant all across campus, and it truly made it such a terrific experience. Some of the teachers, some of the professors that I had, they're actually still here. Bill Torbett, who I believe was really the kind of the spearhead with the Diane Weiss competition. For many of the MBAs who've been a part of that, Diane Weiss was actually a classmate of mine during that. It was such a loss when we heard she was valedictorian during that period of time. You had, for the most part, Gene Bartunek, David Murphy, who was statistics professor back then, and who's now, I guess, economics. For those of you who have as a professor, we share your pain. Man, it's a true analytic, but boy, we plowed through with David during that time. And I know, some of the memories with David Murphy, if he's here, my apologies. It was just an unbelievable time. So, again, thank you, Bob Taggart and John Gallagher. Thank you for inviting me here. I recognize this is Tech Day, and we're talking a little bit about technology, but what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of a marketing spin to all this. And what I want to do is kind of get you a little bit grounded with regards to the overall picture as to mobile ESPN. How did mobile ESPN actually germinate? that actually came into fruition from a commercialization standpoint. As of yesterday, we actually officially launched mobile ESPN in 4 test markets with Best Buy as our major retailer. And we actually had our first sale yesterday. So, kudos to us. If any of you have seen this gentleman, George Bodenheimer, he is the true visionary behind ESPN over the last 5 years. Steve Bornstein was the president of ESPN prior to George, but since George came on board, he is a man who is incredibly intuitive and instinctive. I mean, you will never find a guy who, just out of his entrepreneurial spirits, can identify a specific opportunity. And he has a tremendous relationship with the Walt Disney Company in terms of, from a business development standpoint, identifying many of those opportunities and how that all came about. But what I want to do is at least share with you a little bit of a story in terms of mobile ESPN and pretty much how it came about. The situation with many of the networks, media networks, and particularly with ESPN, as you know, we rely very heavily on several of the cable companies across the United States: Time Warner, Cablevision, Comcast, Charter, and these are truly our distribution partners. We rely on them in terms of customer service platforms, the billing platforms, and ultimately distribution of our network based on our signal feeds up on the satellites and how it's drawn down to our various earth stations. The issue we run into is that with ad sales and commissions that we charge to the cable company, we charge both to the cable companies and from our advertisers, we start to see the trends over the next several years as being somewhat saturated. So we're actually starting to reach a period of time where ultimately these revenues are going to start plateauing. So the idea is, what can we do within ESPN to ultimately diversify our portfolio beyond being heavily reliant on the cable companies in terms of both the ad revenue as well as many of the commissions that we've been able to implement over the last several years. And so a lot of initiatives such as magazine, ESPN the magazine, utilizing ESPN.com from a commerce standpoint, and by far probably our most riskiest venture, mobile ESPN. And I say that because unlike the cable companies, we now have to rely on our own infrastructure. We rely on the Sprint network. We rely on outsourcing our customer care platforms. We rely on our billers to fully integrate both the usage, the actual billing, recording accurate revenue, overage charges and such. We have to hire a logistics vendor to make sure that when we send our handsets, that they are sent properly to all the different stores across Best Buy and whomever else we partner from a distribution standpoint. So the brand, the risk is on us. Customers who have a problem, they'll come back to ESPN. And so this is the kind of ongoing risk that we're running into. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you this specific video. Originally, the concept was ESPN Mobile. And about maybe just over a year and a half ago, this was a video that was shown to both Michael Eisner and Bob Iger, as well as Tom Staggs of the Walt Disney Company. And ultimately, this was the video, along with the presentation, that helped sell the idea of mobile ESPN, and then really pretty much allowed us to launch from both concept into commercialization. It's about a minute and a half, so my banner for today, Allison Fairley, who actually works for me, we recruited her this past May. Why don't you take it, show the video.
Another shot into McCovey Cove. I guess y'all know you should have walked them this time, huh? What's up, man? I'm just, checking out my cell phone here. This is Stuart Scott coming to you live from the new state-of-the-art ESPN Digital Center in Bristol. ESPN is breaking the mold once again with this new ESPN mobile phone.
This is SportsCenter.
Your ESPN mobile phone is always on with the bottom line sports sticker, so you always know the score to all of the games. And with the My ESPN startup screen, your favorite content is just a single button press away. ESPN Game Day gives you all the information you need at the game. Buy tickets, order food, get stats, read previews, get alerts that your friends are also at the game. Streaming video even. You say you want highlights? How about the ones that you care about? ESPN streams video highlights of your choice straight to your color phone screen. Hey, with the ESPN mobile, you have the ultimate access to the sports world right where you are. Why wait?
Maybe a little bit of an overpromise. But I remember during this meeting, Michael Eisner, he was just so excited about the concept. He said, "This is great. Why not? And why don't we just try to expand this beyond domestic? Why don't we just go international with this? Clearly on a global level across all our different Disney properties." And then Tom Staggs, CFO, says, well, Mike, it's going to cost you probably about $1 billion to do it. And he's like, oh. So throttle back. I said, okay, so great. So stick with the U.S. domestic piece of it first, and then once we filled our knowledge gaps, then we could further expand that into the international side. So we'll see where that pretty much goes. What I want to do now is actually try to walk through my presentation and ground you a little bit about ESPN in general, and then kind of segue into the mobile ESPN piece of it. So let me try to share with you a little bit about some of our branding guidelines. When we say ESPN is the world's largest sports fan, for the most part, this brand is by far one of the most passionate from a avid sports fan perspective. Within ESPN, we follow a specific culture where, for the most part, we try to relate as much to the fans as possible, and then try to carry that throughout much of our programming. So, as an example, we really talk with the fans. We don't talk at them. We're really trying to at least understand the emotional passion with them, and really try to relate to them in terms of talking with them. Their knowledge base. We ultimately respect their knowledge about sports. Now, there's definitely different levels of knowledge with regards to the casual fan and the avid sports fan. But for the most part, you have to acknowledge that the fan knows most about their teams, their players, than anybody that's out there, and that's the true acknowledgement going out in the marketplace. We strive to make them better fans. The key here is that as we look at our SportsCenter commentary, when we try to at least build the programming in terms of our communication to fans, we try to educate to them and entertain all at the same time. So as fans become much more knowledgeable, they ultimately become a greater fan at the end of the day, and that helps to grow the passion. We capture the fans' passion that we share and serve it back in some kind of a shared voice. A shared voice could be across all different types of multimedia, whether it's through the internet, through our television programming, through our magazines, as well as several of the different networks. This shared voice is repeated time and time again, and we really try to, again, build the entertainment value associated with from much of a shared voice. We at ESPN take sports seriously, but don't take ourselves too seriously. And at the end of the day, what we mean by that is that we want the programming to be as lively and entertaining as possible, but we also want people to feel that it's fun, and that you're coming away with some kind of an emotional takeaway that says, boy, I want to see more of ESPN again. But at the same time, we're not going to come across as being the experts about sports. We're trying to act more like a fan, just like everyone else out there in the marketplace. So that's critical in terms of progeny call, born August 21st, 2001. Okay, game time, 5:54 p.m. That's when he was born. Sats, 6 pounds, 13.9 ounces, 19 3/4 inches. Home field, Southwest Texas Methodist Hospital. Coach and manager, Michael and Rebecca. Special award, prenatal kicking. Okay. There was at one time where this was actually utilized as an ad, and then we have somebody, ESPN Ray Curio. Some guys said if ESPN were a girl, I'd marry him. So you can see how the power of the brand really transcends across a number of different people, up to the point where they've gone actually a little bit over the top there. Now, what is the degree of popularity with regards to ESPN, and what is being driven in terms of both awareness as well as the level of familiarity with ESPN? As far as awareness levels, we have now reached a point about 97%, all the way through 2005, going back in year 2000, about 94%. Throughout that time, as we started coming out with different forms of media that extends the ESPN name, we've actually built our familiarity, our viewers' familiarity with ESPN from 80% in the year 2000 to 89% in its current day. That's a huge jump. If any of you have been on the research side, in terms of how we've been able to build the breadth and depth of the ESPN brand over a period of time. But that core audience, men 18 to 34, a huge awareness level of 98% and 96% familiarity, with most recent usage at 74%. So 3 out of 4 men out there in that specific age range have some way, somehow connected with ESPN. Even the ladies out there, we're going to get you one day. We're right now at about, let's see, for women at 1834, 99%, 87% from a familiarity standpoint, 40% recent use. We'll get you there. But one of the requirements we actually hired 2 people, both Allison and one by the name of Elise Meredith, who came from the Master of Science Finance program. And Elise was on the BC soccer team. She was on the BC softball team. So she may not have had that much experience, but she loved sports. And as a true BC fan, we essentially took her on, and it's just been a terrific relationship ever since. Okay, so it's not just about television. It's about several other different forms of media that where we've actually enhanced the ESPN presence. On websites, ESPN is actually the top website here in the United States. In any given month, just based on the most recent data, we have 16 million unique visitors who come to the website each month. That is, when you can think about 16 million people, that's just huge. And each of them, and this is not overlap, so that's just a tremendous number. When you look at the statistics about reach, about 9.9% reach, that translates to about almost 1.2 million page views. And the average amount of time that these people who come to the website, they're spending literally just over a half an hour on the ESPN website. Now, I don't know where we have that kind of time, us people working, but I mean, that's just a tremendous amount of time. And so can you only imagine the true avid sports fan, if they're only spending, if the average is 30 minutes, we're talking hours actually being spent on the website itself. Now on this side, on the other side, there is a piece of the business that we have on ESPN Wireless. And essentially what it is that we actually package our content and sell it to the various wireless carriers such as Verizon, Singular, T-Mobile. And what they'll do with that content, they'll repackage it and make it part of their basic offer. So it could be a part of their premium package, however that may be. But from a strategic standpoint, it's clearly an opportunity for us to really extend the distribution of the ESPN brand, across a number of different users. And up until now with the current WAP site across these different carriers, we have approximately about 4 million monthly unique visitors who come into wireless internet. Okay, so why do we want to go wireless, okay? Well, it's not that ESPN hasn't been in the wireless space before. We've actually dabbled in the wireless space going as far back as 1995 when we started doing a considerable amount of text messaging with our pager business. And then we started venturing into WAP technology going into 1998, providing a menu of different content on the AT&T PocketNet back in those days. And then going into year 2000, we started getting a little bit more up to speed on the Palm with a much more improved graphic, but still more within a text context. All right, so wireless has been with us, but it's been for the most part fairly stealth. And it's only until now that we're really trying to highlight wireless in a much more unique and promoted fashion. But what has been the opportunity for all of us, for within ESPN in terms of the wireless sector? Why are we pursuing this so hard at this moment? Well, we know on a global level, when you take a look at what we see projected trends going over the next 4 or 5 years, we could see that content as a percentage of revenue on a global level will probably reach somewhere around 20% of total. Now, in the United States right now, we actually are lagging behind, well behind both Europe as well as Asia as far as overall content. In the United States right now, content, while it's growing extremely rapid, we're probably less than 10% in terms of overall total revenue. So there is a huge opportunity out for us to at least, really trying to promote a wireless content scenario. And then when you start looking at the different forms of content, sports, weather, music, we see some tremendous amount of growth beyond just the messaging piece. And those types of content are going to represent much more of a disproportionate share of the total revenue going forward. So the key here is how you go about somehow packaging all this in a way so that it's most relevant. If you go to the next slide. Now, we're clearly seeing convergence on a mobility standpoint. We see areas like imaging, whether it's via a camera or a camcorder, or whether we see ringtones, MP3 downloads, some of the primary media content that I just spoke about just briefly, as well as games, as well as like SMS messaging. Finding a way to how we can at least converge that into a platform in a way so that for particularly our mobile ESPN phone, trying to make it as relevant and differentiated to our target audience as possible. And then from a technology standpoint, we could certainly then define the customer experience that we want people coming away as an avid sports fan. Then we try to identify the certain technologies, whether it's from a data platform or through some biller, we try to identify those technologies that help support the overall customer experience that we're trying to create over a period of time. So it's just been a tremendous challenge, and I think we're very pleased in terms of some of the progress we've made over this past year. Our reach from an ESPN brand aspect, we actually on a weekly basis somehow hit 97 million people each week. Whether you're watching an ESPN program across several of our different networks, whether you're actually reading an article over a magazine, or whether you're going through the internet site or through some kind of a WAP platform, we're hitting literally, just under half the U.S. population. The average person right now is probably going through about 48 minutes per day with regards to the content. And young male fans, we talked about half hour viewership. Here, we're looking at about actually 2 hours per day in terms of reviewing actual content. So I lost one person, but I gained another person. So know we could beat that number much more significantly. But with the introduction of ESPNU, as well as with the mobile service, we know that we have an opportunity to further extend the reach at a given point in time. Okay, so what is mobile ESPN at the end of the day? What is our sports value proposition? What are we all about? We are a new wireless service truly targeted to the avid sports fan. If you are a casual sports fan, like you know the Bruins, you know the Red Sox, you know Boston College, but if you're for the most part more on the periphery, as opposed to I need to know the score, I need to get truly personalized with my content, then you're really not the avid sports fan. We're talking about a fanatic. We're talking about somebody who, if I'm having dinner with my wife and she's talking about her day with the kids, I'm in the meantime looking at my sports boards and trying to check out what the Yankees are doing for the most part and how they're clocking the Red Sox. Or you're out with your girlfriend and you're just having you're having a good time, but she's talking about something else, and you've got to just check your scores. You just got to check your highlights. So for the ladies out there, just bear with those guys. They're just over a period of time, you may become a fan as well. But for the most part, we take a look at from a research standpoint a lot of the psychographic information. What's the psychology behind an avid sports fan? What makes those people really tick? And when we look at the psychographic behavior, we then look to coming back with a specific design, a specific handset that has very distinguishing features, the type of sports content, and the type of user interface that would make it much more compelling and want people to come back over and over again. Okay, so when we tried it, at that moment in time when we finally defined the overall customer experience to our, let's say, our systems folks, we then, our systems technology people come back to us and say, okay, so you really want this kind of experience, a true immersive sports experience where I could get real-time scores? And at first they laugh at you, ha ha ha, we can't deliver that. But as you start to do the due diligence in terms of what type of technologies are out there, we then start to back in what type of feature functionality is going to be most appropriate to deliver that level of experience. So we have a 1.3 megapixel camera, which is much more extensive than most of the cameras that are out there. We have a built-in camcorder. We have a much larger LCD screen than most other cameras, with a fairly large speakerphone. We're really talking here about entertainment value at the end of the day. And so this whole convergence of these different feature functionality really is to provide a customer experience that truly enhances the sports value proposition and really enhances the value. So it's not so much technology in and of itself. It's the benefits associated with the technology that hopefully helps to deliver the type of customer experience that we're looking for. Okay. Now, the type of content that, the primary medium, the type of content that's going to help us deliver some of that experience. What our programmers, our content providers actually did over the last year was we really wanted to maintain a look and feel that was very similar to much of the television programming that many of you have been exposed to with ESPN. So if you take a look at ESPN or ESPN2, you may start to see a similar look and feel to the scoreboards as well as some of the content features. We've incorporated real-time scores, where our goal at some point in time is actually to maybe have a 2 to 3 second latency period between an actual game clock for a given NFL or college game and on the handset itself. So our goal is truly to come away with some real-time scores. Up to the minute news, information, scores and standings, as well as audio visual clips, and a high level of degree of personalization. that we think is going to make it very compelling. So you could truly personalize in your handset. Actually, Allison will give us a little demonstration just after this slide. You'll see, let's say, actually you don't have the Red Sox. You have, let's say, the Yankees, you have Boston College, you have the Bruins. You could actually now personalize that onto your handset, and with one-touch access, get all the information you're looking for with those respective teams and some of the players. You'll get all the statistics and everything associated. Equally important to the primary content is this third-party content. News, weather, information. Also ringtones, wallpaper, games. How do we actually bring that kind of immersion together and integrate it in a way so that the experience is as superfluous as possible from a sports content and third-party piece? That's going to be a very ongoing challenge moving forward. But nevertheless, it's clearly the direction that we're taking from a strategic standpoint in terms of how we look at content overall. Now, without further ado, let's try to demonstrate a little bit of our mobile ESPN platform. Yeah, I love buttons. Okay. Yeah, so we have our DC download here. So let's get right into, so this is one touch button, and it gets us right into the ESPN platform. We go through a little thingamajig, and what's interesting here is every time we go into the web gateway, there will always be a sports factoid. All right. Did you know that XXX? Now, what I like to do, Allison, if you could kind of like use the scroll, the sideline. So everything all within athletic language. Okay. So here's our sideline menu. Okay. This gives you the opportunity to actually navigate through various forms of sports content. It's very easy of use, both scrolling up, down, and there's a true variety of content. So, Allison, let's take a look at scores as an example. Okay, so we press the button. Now, see those two arrows up there, up and down? We're actually in a 1x environment, as opposed to, let's say, a high-speed EPDO environment. Now, so here are scores for the NBA right now. Right now, there aren't any games currently being played at this moment, but when the games are played, you will see an update of all the different scores across the league. And as the games actually go into progress, when we get into, I don't want you to hit the preview button because we'll lose everything at this point, but if you hit the preview button during the course of a game, those of you who are familiar with Gamecasts on the ESPN website, that'll actually show you the actual plays, the play-by-play, the statistics, up-to-the-minute scores, and some of the news. So you're really in tune both on the score side as well as news and information with regards to the game itself. And so that makes it a tremendous platform. Now, let's get back into the menus. Let's take a look at it from a personalization standpoint. So let's go into the New York game. Let's go to Eagles football. Okay. Now, the last game that was played was BC Virginia Tech, that we all want to forget at this moment. All right. But nevertheless, we have how Virginia Tech outscored BC for every single quarter. Now, normally during the game, you would see a fairly refreshed update with regards to the scores themselves. You will get some play-by-play in terms of who did what, from a passing, from a rushing standpoint, and there's ways of how we actually go about statistics. Here, this is actually our ESPN bottom line ticker. So, little tidbits of information that you actually see on television, we've also incorporated that into our wireless platform as well. Okay, let's go to the video. So this will take a little time to ramp up, but mobile video truly becomes a critical part of the overall mobile ESPN platform. That helps us to extend the experience. Let's try some of the hockey. So we have three specific categories: featured shows, New Jersey. That's a better vision. Yeah. So this is Pittsburgh versus the Devils. Yep. So much for the sale. Okay. All right. Why don't we take a look at? Oh, that's all right. Okay. Let's try one more demo. Okay, I'm gonna challenge you on this one. Let's go into the menu. Get a little bit into the menu, and we'll scroll down to the menu, the M, which is maybe 3 above, 3, 4. Sorry. Get into that. Okay, let's look at Teams. Okay, let's go to MLB. Let's look at the American League East. Okay, let's go to Boston. And let's look at statistics. Okay, so we've got David Ortiz with a batting average of 300 at the end of the season, 47 home runs, and let's see, RBI at 148 RBIs. It's actually pretty impressive. So if we actually click on David Ortiz. Come on. Okay, it works. All right. So now we get much more highlighted information on a specific player, their team statistics, as well. There's actually more information that you actually could capture into this overall platform. I could tell you from a data platform standpoint, there really is nobody out there in the marketplace that has put together such a data platform together, such as the one we have out there. So what we have actually is really, from a historical standpoint, it's an actually industry first. So this really now becomes a significant play for mobile ESPN. And I think the key here from a competitive standpoint is that you have to be a first mover. And once we know that there will be followers out there. There will be the sprints. We see possibly maybe Fox Sports or anybody else out there who decides they want to do a similar service. But you can actually take a first mover approach, and you keep differentiating your content over time and utilize the technology to further enhance the experience. That is the way to retain your customers over a long period of time. So it plays both from an acquisition as well as from a retention standpoint. Okay. Now, why don't we try Sports Chamber?
Try now?
Yeah. You know, what I want to do, a lot of people ask, well, how do you actually utilize technology in a way so that we could actually generate more registrants, more avid fans along the way? And so with our folks on the internet side, we actually produce something called Sports Chamber, which is a trivia. And Trey Wingo, who is one of our key sports announcers within Sports Center, he's...
Welcome into the Sporture Chamber. Do you really think you've got the sports chops to compete? Look, every sport is fair game. But we're challenging you to think about them in ways you'd never expect. You'll be competing, well, for the world's greatest invention, ever. Something so portable and powerful, you'll have prime access to the world of sports. It's yours, if you can survive the Sporture Chamber Challenge and prove yourself worthy by ranking among its top 5 competitors. Not to mention, we'll also be giving away a $25,000 gift certificate and tons of weekly prizes. So what do you think there, Sparky? Good. You're impulsive, reckless, and a little cocky. I like that. Bring it.
So the whole key about this particular application is currently live on the website on www.sporterchamber.com. And what we're doing is we're trying to gain registrants, participate there, and utilize those registrants in terms of direct mail campaigns so there's a game clock that actually goes on. I don't know. Yeah, you want to try getting into that real quick? So there's, yeah. So we'll choose someone out of the crowd. Say professor. And so you'll see Trey Wingo actually come up occasionally on this flash player and actually kind of tease you along the way as you're trying to answer some of the questions.
All right, by now we're really beginning to see what you guys are made of. The process of natural selection is taking place, the weaker herds dying off. We're separating the Derek Jeters from the Buddy Biancalanas. And let's be honest, most of you, you're not good. You're all over the place. Yet for some strange reason, I admire your tenacity, your stick-to-itiveness, your stupidity. But you know, as Al Michaels once said, do you believe in miracles? Yes! Let's play.
Okay, John, we're going to test your trivia.
What I did see, Mr. Foley back here is very good.
Okay. All right. Please come up.
Yeah? No, you gotta come up. I'm gonna let you do the clicking.
Right this way, Your Majesty.
So you have 90 seconds.
Who reached the $3 million mark?
What was that answer?
Frank, immaculate reception.
We're 50-50 now, but there's no intermission, so suck it up.
Anyone? Thank you.
Hey, you got 30 seconds left, but no pressure. Just make it count.
I don't know. Our game is Aaron.
Well, your time's up. Try to think of it as an act of mercy. You'll thank me later for this.
Let's tell you how you do.
Not bad. And so the bonus question is,
Oh, there we go. Have to click on it?
huh.
What do we do?
A temporary technical difficulty. But in any case, this is actually one of our...
There you are.
Your ranking, I can't see it. And he is ranked...
I've got two. No, you're ranked 71st.
He's ranked 71st.
Actually, out of,
Let's see.
oh no, wait, that's,
Can you read actual number of
your rank is actually 6537. That's due to my first 2 weeks, so sorry about your third one. And you got 2 right on that one. Sorry about that. And it's out of 6549.
Congratulations, you're a true avid sports fan.
You only the first 2 weeks on me.
So this is actually going to go on through much of December. And again, it's just a way, once you actually go onto the website and you finish going through your trivia, you'll have to wait at least another week before you actually go into week 2. And so we have prizes going on for each week for some of the top finishers, with the grand prize being a $25,000 gift certificate at Best Buy. So, we're trying to build a combination of both the concept, technology, incentives, all in a way so that it just further enhances the fan experience along the way. So you get a little flavor from a marketing standpoint in terms of how technology aids us in terms of promoting the brand over time. Okay, so getting back to the presentation a bit. We already talked about the sideline. There's been a tremendous amount of reviews with regards to the handset itself. And we could go to the next slide. And we actually spent a good amount of time with regards to the video piece of it. Customization is really going to be the critical piece here. Even though we can't come away providing, let's say, Boston College students with personalized videos right at the outset, over time, as you start to see digital compression coming into play, as we start to see new technologies, hopefully there will be a way in how we could deliver a number of different type of experiences across the various segments along the way. So the technology, for the most part, sometimes accelerates well ahead of the actual ideas and thinking. And so it's something to clearly be on top of. It's a very exciting piece of the exciting period of time that we're currently in at this time. Now, if we were looking at a true Bostonian avid sports fan, here's an example of Kenny, okay? A 42-year-old Bostonian, all right, who has his mobile ESPN phone service, and he's a big subscriber to both ESPN Insider, Sports Illustrated. He's had the phone for a good 6 months, and he's kind of like what we would call the road warrior. He's a guy who maybe spends more than 50% of his time traveling, but he has to be in touch with his favorite sports teams, players, and such. So, it's 3:45 or at Logan Airport. He's just finished having a beer. Sam Adams guzzle. And Kenny checks in at the gate. He checks the latest lines, games, previews, and injuries, and makes some last-minute calls before his flight takes off. And so that's pretty much a screen, shares a lot of that information. So then he lands at about 5:15. He gets off the airplane, and now checking some of the latest scores of the specific game, he then he launches right into GameCast, and that gives him pretty much up-to-the-minute information in terms of where the game is at that very moment. Okay, and then an evening business meeting at 6:20 p.m. So now he's in the midst of this meeting. He has GameCast on his platform as we speak. So throughout that whole meeting, he actually closes his handset, and in this little screen, he will see the scores getting refreshed while he's having this meeting. So he's never out of touch along the way throughout this whole meeting. Whether he's in the meeting, outside of the meeting, here, we're just nuts when it comes to sports. And so it's only for those avid sports fans. Now, if you're looking at, if any of you are ever trying to think about starting up a new wireless phone service on a post-subscription basis, here are the kind of things you have to worry about as far as your partnerships. You have to find a network, and we're currently using Sprint on a wholesale basis. You have to find a distributor on the distribution piece. So we're looking at Best Buy, where actually 90% of many of their people who visit Best Buy actually watch ESPN. We have to work with a handset manufacturer, and so we work with Sanyo, and we've come up with the Sanyo MVP. Converse, that is our current data platform for much of the sports content that we just demonstrated just recently. Convergys, we have to find a biller out there who has the technology and the capability to really understand the complexity associated with wireless usage and how you properly build those. And if you ever work in operations and product development, God bless you. I mean, it's truly analytic. It can be a nightmare. If you're looking at digits, there's zeros and ones everywhere, and there's flow charts galore. But it's a tremendous. But the technology is just tremendous, and it's just very fascinating. Our agency of record for mobile ESPN is Arnold Advertising, which is actually located here in Boston. And they're actually out in Copley Plaza. We actually have a call center out in Omaha, Nebraska, West, which they've been rated extremely high over the years. into fulfillment packages, and then ship it out to the Best Buys or whatever that distribution network is. So really understanding the logistics piece of it. So in these actual test markets that we're in, starting yesterday, our key objective is not so much from a test marketing standpoint, but more from a logistics, integrated systems operation standpoint. We want to make sure that the customer experience is right, our logistics are right, our billing is correct, all these things leading up to a national launch sometime in the first quarter of next year. Now, our overall positioning, okay? How do we actually position the brand out there in the marketplace? Well, we know that for among those avid sports fans, one of the biggest issues they run into is what I was saying earlier before. Got to deal with the wife, go shopping. Got to deal with the girlfriend, talk about issues. And so, all these things, the chores, the kids, everything about life in general. And our overall positioning platform, life will never get in the way of sports again, okay? So, for you, the avid sports fan, who wants to be connected on a 24/7 basis, you now have the capability to actually keep yourself connected throughout 24 hours, 7 days a week. It is by far the best invention in the history of the world ever. And at the end of the day, it's all about you, the fans. Now, our mission at ESPN is to serve the fan as best as possible. And how do we, at the end of the day, utilize technology in a way to serve the fan from a customer experience standpoint? That is the ongoing challenge that we have, and making sure that fans like yourselves are truly loyal to a brand like ESPN. And so, with that, I hope you come away with how some aspects of technology aid us in terms of actual sports, the ESPN sports experience. So, thank you. I guess there's some time for questions. So please, any questions?
One question I have, how do you deal with your channel conflict with Sprint in terms of, a certain percentage of ESPN Mobile customers are going to quit Sprint to use ESPN Mobile, so,
Mobile ESPN?
sorry, yeah. So, why is Sprint going to cooperate with you when you're going to cannibalize a certain amount of their customers? How do you handle
Well, much of Sprint's strategy has been to clearly accelerate the wholesale piece of it. They have built in extra capacity within their network so that they can clearly allocate enough of the wholesale for future MVNOs moving down the road. The biggest challenge, to your point, would be that if we were ever to partner with Sprint from a distribution standpoint and actually sell in their stores, how do we maintain for our sales force that level of indifference? So we have to think about sales commissions and making sure that mobile ESPN is just up there along with some of the various Sprint phones. The key here for us is that from a targeting standpoint, we don't want to be everything to everybody. We want to be something to a small niche of sports fans who ultimately are going to drive a disproportionate amount of revenue. And so that's a critical piece for us in how we effectively train salespeople to make sure we've got to identify those specific sports fans who think this is relevant, the service is relevant and differentiated.
Since Sprint is the only carrier at this point, what about the subscribers for other three-way wireless?
So like a singular or
How about those sports fans? Can they still get repeat, or they gotta wait till
they ultimately would have to switch out of their service and come to the mobile ESPN. If you take a look at sports content on some of the other carriers, I think our speaker before, talked a little bit about VCAS, Verizon VCAS, and some of the video plays there. But our key here is that we're trying to establish much more of an immersive sports experience. And I think that's going to be different from many the sports value proposition jump out at you. And so, even from an acquisition standpoint, when we're talking about bringing on new customers on board, we're going to take it from the Singulars, the T-Mobiles, Sprint Nextels of the world, and try to have them come to our platform. So, even though we're working with Sprint's network, at the end of the day, they're still our competition, and we're still going to try to capture them coming onto our platform.
Why would you choose to partner with Sprint, given the fact that they seem to be, of all the carriers, the one who has the network that's least favored amongst users in general, and especially with such a high technology product that you guys have?
Well, I wish we spoke with you maybe a year ago. We spoke with Sprint at the time, but I think at the time when the decision was made, we felt that the technology that they were putting, the amount of money they were putting into improving upon network technology, and particularly this whole EVDO platform, which is actually rolling out nationwide over the next several months, we thought that was a significant factor in terms of how we would then reinforce the customer experience from a high-speed wireless internet aspect. So that piece plus money. From a price standpoint, I mean, there was a number of different variations within the contract that we looked at, but I think the investment behind into the network, the EVAO technology, and their rollout schedule was a big selling point for us in terms of driving the customer experience. Ladies, yes, first.
Just a couple questions. One is, how many customers do you expect to have within your first year or your first several years? And this, my second question is, what's your pricing strategy for this product?
Yes, we're going to have a lot of customers coming in. And as far as pricing strategy, we're looking at either a la carte or bundle. So stay tuned.
Okay.
So you've outsourced everything except what is your differentiator, which is your content. What sort of service levels type agreements do you have in place to make sure that your brand isn't and your content isn't eroded by failure to perform?
Well, there's several different type of contingency plans that we try to put together in the event that we go through, let's say, data platform outages and such. It's not going to be perfect. I mean, there's certainly going to be bumps along the way from a technology standpoint, and even from a systems platform aspect. We'll get, oddly enough, when you look at billing as an example, 50% of the calls that usually come into a customer service platform, customer care platform, is actually related to billing problems. And then when you dig deep in terms of the billing problems, you find that it's not an error on the part of the carrier. It's the perception of consumers that say, hey, I didn't make this call from Roxbury, but little do they know that the cell tower actually resides in Roxbury. So, when you look at the billing aspect, they're saying, oh, it's based on the origination of the cell tower. Okay? So you get a lot of, so you have to deal with a lot of these different issues as it relates to, you have to first acknowledge the problems that are out there among customers. And then once you at least start to acknowledge it, then try to get into the problem solving and fixing it. And if they're still unhappy, then you got to throw an incentive or two to really try to make them whole at the end of the day. But from a technical standpoint, there clearly are some contingency plans that we're looking at. We know it's not going to be perfect. We know we're going to fall down a few times along the way. But we learn along the way, given the fact that we're going to be acting as a carrier for the very first time. Yes.
Yeah, we saw a couple sports clips. One of the things that I love about the website is that I get little sports blurbs. At the end of the day, the newscasters come on and they talk about the specific kinds of things that are going on with your teams. Is that kind of stuff going to be carried over into the phone? Are we going to have the access to the commentaries and the sportscasters?
While I answer that question, and Banner brings that up, there is so part of the video highlights, we have three specific categories. We have featured highlights, we have the actual shows, so the actual Sports Center shows, and then we have specific sports highlights. So there will, as we, let's show them the shows, Sports Center. So there will be, we'll try to converge some of the stuff from Sports Center as an example, and specific commentary as part of the overall experience. I can answer the next question before we actually get into the actual videos here.
How much of a premium are you guys looking to charge on top of, just a regular cell phone service? I'm just looking to get, regular variable phone, let's say Verizon.
Let's put it this way. Because we're trying to establish more of a sports value proposition, and since most consumers look at ESPN from a premium standpoint, we think we can charge a premium. We won't take the lead from a voice standpoint in terms of playing the price game, in terms of coming back with the lowest price per minute. That's not really the game we really want to play. We want to be in a game where we're competitive, and so people can feel comfortable with regards to the calls, the customer care piece of it. But we really want to make the content really being more upfront, and so we would look to charge more of a premium, particularly on the data side, as opposed to making it on the voice side.
So kind of like a per bit scheme, or like would there be like an unlimited type program, or like, and just in terms of, a monthly fee, like an extra $5 a month for this, or more of a, I'm going to use it, 30 times a month, so every time I use it, I'm going to be paying an extra 50 cents.
Yeah, I think that's so you would be talking of maybe potentially overage if I use too much content or so. I mean, we're trying to best analyze one of the key things for the next 3 months when we look at these markets is really understand usage behavior, and then where do we actually start to put a cap in terms of the amount of megabytes, as an example, for content. So a little bit to your question about from a pricing strategy standpoint, we have to look at our cost infrastructure too, to make sure that we don't throw away the bank here because people are constantly downloading to let's say 5 megabytes of video every single day. So we have to keep those cost considerations intact as we start to formulate pricing strategy. So there's a non-answer.
Well, you need to gather the data.
Sure. Yes, sir.
How would you handle digital rights management? Is it audio content so you don't care?
Can you be more specific?
Well, the last speaker actually talked about it too, but when you have that content, are they allowed to keep it on their phone? Do they send it to a friend? Is it going to expire in 30 days?
Oh, I see.
It's the ownership.
Oh, I see. Well, much of that content is ours, and so anybody who experiences that content here, they won't have an opportunity to actually save it on their, let's say, on their mini ID, mini SD piece of it. So the content is essentially refreshed. There won't be an opportunity to download the video and save it into a disk. So that really becomes more the property of ESPN. So we own the digital rights and content from the ESPN standpoint. Now, in terms of, let's say, league rights, the NFL, the NHL, that you have to clearly negotiate league rights with the leagues. And believe me, that takes a while because your left arm will come off as part of the negotiations.
What's the point of the memory chip? You can't save
Well, part of the memory chip piece of it is also to provide you with as much of an overall experience as possible. So it's not just the sports among the avid sports fans. We're looking at games, look at ringtones, wallpaper, text messaging. So things that we can actually save, or even imaging. So I use my mini SD card as far as let's say I download from my iTunes. If I have a 1 gig mini SD card, I could actually download save about 250 songs onto this, and the accessory package that comes with earplugs and such, I could use this as my MP3 player. I have also my imaging, so I get into my camera and take a picture of you, and I could save that into my mini SD. I could bring it as an upload and actually send it in a picture mail format.
Would you be able to send it directly from the memory card to your computer, like without having to go through Sprint's network?
On a wireless basis?
Like, not using Sprint's network. Like, so I'm not going to get charged 25 cents for taking a picture from my phone and bringing it to the computer. You know what I mean? I know Verizon does that.
You know, that's a good question. I'm going to have to lie to you.
I'm
just saying, you provided
I
a
don't
really
know.
good value for
I don't
me
know.
if that was like something you guys offered. Like, I didn't have to go through Sprint's network in order to use my content. I mean, but it's obviously not here.
I think that's an excellent question. Okay, play that sports game. Good question. Oh. How about the monster mash?
Oh,
Actually, that one. Miami one.
Three keys to the big game this week. Virginia Tech and Miami. Number one, defense. Both teams most commonly ranking. Virginia Tech is the number one scoring team in the nation, and Miami is the number three scoring team in the nation. The second key for me is quarterback play. How Wright probably hasn't played the game of his career in order to have success against the Virginia Tech defense. Because Marcus Vick is getting better each and every week. And the third key, obviously, special teams. With Frank Beamer, you know there's going to be something special, a big play out of the Virginia Tech Hokies. But on the other side of the ball, Miami is bound to have the most electrifying punt return in the nation.
Yeah, so we have there's actually a select number of SportsCenter commentators who actually participate in our mobile ESPN platform. We haven't been able to get Chris Berman in there yet, so he's definitely a biggie, and something that is currently in negotiations. Yes.
Have you seen any advertisements or any clips that we've seen so far? Do you have a plan to put those in place? Or do you see pushback from advertisers to traditional?
So more like let's say a banner ad that goes over into the mobile platform and such. We're not there yet, but there has been some early talks about the possibility of using our network for the purpose of promoting other companies and such over our content. So I would say right now the plan is still at a very, very early phase of exploration. Nothing right now in terms of anything really concrete. Mr.
ESPN has a big partnership with EA Games, and briefly games were mentioned. I'm wondering, can you tell us anything about how that partnership might work on the mobile platform, or things are in the works?
Well, actually, part of our offering, we actually have a couple of EA games into the overall platform. So just trying to see if I get into my downloads and I go into games as an example. So we have ESPN Baseball, Tetris, Jamdat, and we're in discussions with our general manager who oversees both games and the magazine, how we look to potentially incorporate EA games into our actual wireless service. So Tiger Woods, John Madden, NFL. I mean, those are the things that one of the things that we're exploring at this moment.
Can you take non-ESPN content and repackage it to deliver to an ESPN customer? What I'm specifically thinking about is there's a lot of avid sports fans in the US who don't watch baseball, football, or basketball. They may be, for example, in the Hispanic community, they want to watch Mexican league football, but you don't get it on any of the regular channels.
Right.
Or it may be a cricket fan who has to watch some obscure TV channel late at night to see what the score is. But yet that content, I'm sure, is available from the original content. So can you guys take that, repackage it, and essentially deliver it to the handset?
Potentially. If we have some kind of an agreement with that specific content provider, we may or may not be able to actually brand it ESPN per se. But for instance, World Cup soccer next year, as an example, where potentially we could take some of the content from some of the Hispanic stations and then actually incorporate that in terms of our overall programming content, but may not be able to put an ESPN brand attached to it. Those are one of the things that we're at least looking at this moment in terms of how we could take, let's say, non-branded content and put it into piece. I think the key here is the initial strategy will be to at least go with content that we could clearly brand on an ESPN level, and then look for ways of how we could generate incremental revenue with specific content that either is branded or non-branded, but people could see it as a pure premium and say, okay, I'm willing to pay $30 a month to get true Olympic coverage or true World Cup soccer coverage. it's a tough question because the typical life cycle for most handsets out there in the marketplace is anywhere between 9 months to a year. So sometimes the technology actually gets ahead of itself, and a phone like this one, which is the true high-end phone, multimedia with multimedia capability, could clearly be outdated a year from now. So there hasn't been I haven't seen a lot of thought in terms of having a phone where you could either change the memory card or build it in a way so that you could still maintain the same phone, but improve upon feature functionality based on improved memory or however you incorporate the new technology into the handset itself. It's a very time-consuming process, and that any type of handset you actually do get out there, it has to be somehow confirmed into the Sprint network. And that confirmation process actually goes through, with any different carrier, not just Sprint, it could go through, let's say, 2 to 3 months. So if Sprint, let's say, says, well, no, we're not going to go with the Sanyo MVP into our network for next year, well, that can also be a problem for us. So there's a bit of so in the issue of, let's say, particularly on handsets, it's kind of a bit of a parallel strategy, you might say. On one hand, you have to deal with these suppliers and find out, based on your requirements, what kind of portfolio of handsets that are out there that can suit your needs. And then you go to a number of, let's say, new developers who are willing to, let's say, customize a handset for you because you think you could deliver a better experience than what the supplier's handsets can deliver for the most part. Then you kind of weigh out the pros and cons, the cost aspects associated with it, and then whether it can be confirmed within the Sprint's network. It's a very time-consuming process, so it's not an easy question to answer. It's something that we struggle with quite frequently. Yes.
How long did it take you to go from concept where you guys are today? How long has this been in development?
I would say it's taken us about a year and a half, which I think in most cases is actually very, very fast. We have our colleagues out in Burbank, where I think you may have seen an announcement in the Wall Street Journal about Disney actually coming out with their own mobile service. That concept that has been flying around now for almost 2.5 years. A lot of it is based on some of the positioning that they're doing. They are working off a positioning platform, not of so much of content, but security. So if you're, mother who's the gatekeeper, who's going to buy a phone for, let's say, your 8-year-old, okay, you want to make sure that that 8-year-old isn't downloading adult content and such. You want to make sure that there's just a kind of security platform where you can make sure you can ensure you can monitor that child's usage, and at the same time, find a way to position the Disney content along the way. So that's where it's a very difficult proposition coming along the way. Whereas the sports content, it's truly all about the sports.
I would think that switching costs would be pretty high, switching from one provider to another in terms of getting out of contract, putting in all your new phone numbers, and everything that's involved with, that can sometimes be painful with getting a new phone. What is your acquisition strategy and what is your proposition? Are you planning to have any incentives beyond just the content and the entertainment value that's associated with the phone itself?
Well, I think for the most part, like other carriers, we'll still continue to work with, let's say, a 2-year contract. But as far as throwing out other incentives, for the most part, I mean, clearly from a marketing aspect, there could be some promotional incentives that we can entice consumers to come onto our price plans, and at the same time, you may get a lower discount on a specific phone. Or we may provide discounts that are associated with accessories, free accessories and such. So I think there are some promotional tactics along the way that we can induce customers to at least come and switch over to our mobile ESPN piece. I think the key challenge, though, is still, for the most part, we want to make sure that we're identifying those customers who are truly avid sports fans. If you're a family that's part of a mobile-to-mobile plan, and you're part of, let's say, the Verizon plan, you may not be the right customer for us at the moment. So we don't want to spend a considerable amount of our time and attention trying to acquire you, given the fact that your lifestyle and habits may not be as relevant to them. So we have to try to at least identify from a targeting piece, the lifestyle of that particular individual, and then what kind of incentives can we introduce that could really get these people to switch over to us. We know that consumers tend to be very vulnerable to switching when they're starting to hit the 18-month mark of their service. By that time, they've already gone through 18 months of experience, they build an emotional tie around it, but if sports is truly something that the guy out there really wants on a day-to-day basis, he may overcome those switching costs and say, okay, I'll port my number to ESPN. And porting is becoming, it's a technical challenge, but at the end of the day, if you know you can maintain your same cell number, it makes the whole experience much more ideal.
How tied in are the ESPN personalities into the official launch once it gets past this initial market trial period? Will they be talking, is there a strategy to have them talking about it on the network, going on the road, taking this? What sort of promotional strategies for the works?
Well, for instance, Trey Wingo as an example, we have him for, he's ours for 18 months. Okay, so we've utilized him, we utilize him on the handset, we've utilized him in that promotional, in that website that you just saw. And there'll probably be opportunities where we could actually use him in other mediums such as radio. We've been talking from a television standpoint in terms of TV ads. Do we actually utilize our sports center personalities in a way to help further promote the mobile ESPN brand? So it's a lot of discussion that's going on right now. But I think, yes, there's definitely a lot of talk in terms of those personalities. But I think from a positioning standpoint, we need to build the brand. Building that immediate tie with the personalities may not be the first front-going strategy. We want to come away with people thinking this is an immersive experience. And so how do we advertise that in a way so that people can say, wow, if I have this, this is just, I'm just totally immersed into the sports experience. Yes?
The timing of promotion, I'm thinking, people would want to, your sports game would want to buy the Super Bowl if March Madness is the latest, and there's games going on all the time, they don't want to be away or separated. Talk a little bit about the timing as far as promotion to really spread the word about it.
Well, so a perfect example, like on the Super Bowl, so you have about 60, 70 million viewers going in. Perfect opportunity if you have the money to build that instant awareness out there in the marketplace. For us, the key to us is we take into account sports seasonality. So March Madness, college basketball is one. April, opening day, Major League Baseball. Then you have several golf initiatives, tennis initiatives along the way. So the second, the spring-summer period is kind of like your lull period when it comes to sports seasonality. And the key here is trying to maximize return on your marketing investment in specific sports seasonality where you know you get the best bang for the buck. So had we been going through a national launch now, this fourth quarter would be the perfect opportunity because you've got NFL, you have college football, you have the NBA in November, you have college basketball in November, and you have the NHL going on all at the same time. 5 key core sports. So going into the second half of the year, now you have NBA kind of tailoring off into June, the NHL season ends in June, you have MLB going in. So, you have to take a look at those, take a look at key sports seasonality and see how you could actually leverage that, as well as wireless seasonality. The holiday period, December, is actually a critical time for wireless sales. The day of and the day after Christmas is when the heaviest call center traffic actually comes about, because cell phone services are actually given as gifts, and call centers are called up all the time in terms of activation problems, customer care issues. How do I get why isn't my phone activated? It's an incredible busy time during the holiday period for the cell phone industry. Okay, thank you very much.